Theory: biblical creation is correct. Supporting hypothesis: if biblical creation is correct, we should find radiological indicators that are best explained as the result of an active instant creation. Failure to find any such indicators would potentially disprove biblical creation. Experiment: examine crystals for evidence of radiological damage from isotopes that are too short-lived to survive until the crystallization process is complete. Method: deep earth granite, an igneous rock that results entirely from the gradual cooling of molten magma, supposedly taking hundreds to thousands of years to cool sufficiently to form crystallized rock, was examined for anomalous radioactive halos from short-lived isotopes. Results: halos that are distinctive to the polonium-218 isotope were found with a complete absence of radioactive precursors typical of polonium-218 that results from the decay of uranium-238. Significance: polonium-218 has a half-life of 3 minutes, meaning that it is incapable of surviving long enough to create a halo in a crystal unless the uranium-238 is first trapped and decays. If the uranium precursor was trapped, there would be evidence in the form of a uranium-238 halo, as well as other radioactive isotopes that are part of the decay process prior to the formation of polonium-218. It is possible to get a polonium-218 halo if a different long-lived precursor is trapped, but this precursor would also leave a distinct halo superimposed on the polonium halo. The complete absence of evidence of precursor isotopes indicates that the polonium-218 is the only isotope that was trapped in the crystal. Since polonium-218 is so short-lived it must be trapped in the crystal within minutes of forming, this indicates that the crystal and the polonium-218 were formed simultaneously. Natural crystallization occurs over hundreds to thousands of years depending on the conditions, far too long for any free polonium-218 to survive it to be trapped before it decays. Conclusion: since polonium-218 can only survive long enough to create a halo in a crystal if the crystal is formed unnaturally fast, within minutes rather than centuries, these halos are best explained as a result of an active instant creation. This indicates that the Earth was not formed over billions of years, but rather was formed in an instant. Additional information and opposition. The Bible tells us to look to nature to see evidence of God. These polonium halos are so powerful as evidence for instant creation that they have been nicknamed fingerprints of God. For example, Professor R.G. Kasman made the following statement in GeoTimes: the polonium halos, especially those produced by polonium-218, are the center of a mystery. The half-life of the isotope is only 3 minutes, yet the halos have been found in granite rocks at considerable depths below the land surface and in all parts of the world, including Scandinavia, India, Canada, and the United States. The difficulty arises from the observation that there is no identical precursor to the polonium. It appears to be primordial polonium. If so, how did the surrounding rock crystallize rapidly enough so that there are crystals available ready to be imprinted with radiohalos by alpha particles from polonium-218? Additionally, polonium halos have been found in mica and fluorite crystals. However, this evidence has not gone unchallenged, and as with all continuing areas of scientific study, it does have some problems. First is the fact that it cannot be artificially reproduced in the lab. Since we cannot artificially manufacture crystals fast enough to test the formation of polonium halos, testing has come in the form of bombarding crystals with ion beams. This method has not been able to reproduce radioactive halos, but is possibly irrelevant since it does not mimic any natural process. Also, it must be noted that there have been no halos found that are indicative of polonium-210 or polonium-214. This last is a mystery and is part of the ongoing research. Due to the inability of artificially reproduced radiohalos in crystals using ion beams, other hypotheses have been proposed, but all involve radioactive decay processes known to result from polonium-218. These hypotheses are still being tested. Further criticism stems from the fact that there are no known natural processes where sufficient concentrations of polonium can be trapped in the crystals. However, known natural processes rely on gradualism, and the fact that polonium halos defy gradualism is precisely what makes them positive evidence for an act of instant creation. Also, further criticism comes from the fact that most accepted scientific evidence seems to indicate an old Earth, and the hypothesis of a young Earth as supported by these polonium halos directly contradicts this. Finally, there is criticism that not all samples where polonium halos have been found are Precambrian. However, creation theory requires that these halos exist in any layer of rock that was there at the formation of the Earth, as well as sediments that contain particles from these rocks. Given this, the fact that polonium halos have been found in supposedly younger rocks is actually additional support for a young Earth according to creation theory and not evidence against it. However, none of this is sufficient to dismiss or refute the evidence presented by polonium halos. It is absolutely sufficient to dispute them, but not to refute them. And all declarations of refutation are both irresponsible and premature, indicating a lack of basic scientific understanding on the part of those who misuse the word refute when dispute is the honest and appropriate term. Resources include the work of master's-level physicist Robert Gentry as published in peer-reviewed journals such as the Popular Science as well as Nature, and others who have worked with him in this field of research, as well as popular evolutionist resources such as talkorigins.org.